I actually think that identity is key, and then the blockchain account is second. Uh, uh, we're already getting there, but especially in the future, you are a real person, or maybe a business, but I mean, 99% of our user base are just people using this. Um, you are a person, and you want to interact with something Web3, right? So you're signing into a platform, one identity. You have a couple of blockchain accounts and use different wallets, custodial, non-custodial mix, one identity. You use exchanges, one identity. And I think it's really important that you take this one identity to all these platforms instead of the existing, I would say, shit show.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 16 of Yaka Talks. Today I'm with Wietse, founder of XRPL Labs. That's the team behind the XUMM Wallet, basically the go-to XRP non-custodial wallet on the market. Wietse, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be here. Yeah, so like you mentioned, Wietse, founder of XRPL Labs. Most people know our flagship product, which is XUMM, a non-custodial wallet client for iOS and Android, and a platform for developers to build cool stuff and interact with these end users. I wasn't like the typical crypto fanatic from early 2009, 10, etc. I, uh, I looked around, of course, and played with it, and then went on doing my coding I was already doing with my previous business. And then in 2017, early 2017, I decided to do the things high on my to-do list, the things I wanted to look into, learn again, basically, instead of just coding for my business. And I watched a video in 2016 by David Schwartz, the CTO of Ripple, and he was talking really passionately about like this different blockchain, and it was fast and it was cheap and it was a consensus network and much more efficient. So that was kind of intriguing. Decided to play with it, and I realized that that within maybe minutes and 7 lines of code, you would plug into this network in your browser and sign and submit transactions who would then be final in 4 seconds. And that's quite interesting because that's what I envision something needs that actually solves a problem and gets embedded into retail use cases instead of the speculative use case. And yeah, I built this thing called the XRP tip bot, which was a social media tipping platform. And within maybe a year, over 2 million USD was transferred on Twitter and Reddit and everything using this tip bot, which was still a fun hobby project and doesn't work anymore because it's custody, and I mean the regulatory landscape changed as well, but it was a really nice experience, and we decided to um, to build something that has a shot at a future where blockchain is actually being used for, for more efficient, inclusive global payments. And that started out as a small team, three people, myself included. By now we're with 16, and we have 600,000 app downloads and 300,000 active monthly users. So I guess we're on to something.
You've come a long way in just a few years, and really bringing like a product that's really core and central to the community. So it sounds like you'd gotten into crypto by hearing about it through David Schwartz, like you said. Did you look into any of the other sort of blockchains, or were you like, okay, XRP, this is the way I want to go? Because people are a bit tribal out there, right, with the
Definitely,
various chains.
definitely. So yeah, I looked around, of course, in 2011 or something. I played a bit with Bitcoin. A really interesting concept, but well, I didn't see that fit in to a real use case, basically. I actually, all the Bitcoin I had back in the days mined on my iMac in the living room, I spent it on newsgroup access. So, like a lot of
Nice.
us did back in the days. Then long time nothing. Then I checked out Ethereum, smart contracts, just play with it for a couple of days, and decided to go on with my life. And with the XRPL, something was different. Like I just mentioned, it was really easy as a coder to get started. It was really easy to connect using all the technologies already available in your browser, and it was really fast and cheap. And that's something, especially back then, 2017, not that many chains offered. Some were fast, some were cheap, but not easy to implement. Some were easy to implement but slow. And I mean, there were some others, but I especially liked the vision as presented by David Swartz. I liked the libraries they already offered. So if you were a JavaScript coder, you could just plug in libraries ready to use, and a really good documentation. I still like that actually, although it's kind of technical. And a lot of other projects didn't have those things, so it kind of made sense to stick with the XRPL, and I decided to learn everything about it. And I guess I mean I'm still learning. There's so much they thought about in 2000. What is it? 13, 14, 15. That's all native on the ledger and still not even being used today. And there are a lot of opportunities there. So it's very interesting to work with.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think a lot of people know that there's actually like a decentralized exchange more or less built into the
It's
system, right? And
crazy. It's been there for years, and
yep,
finally you see that people are actually starting to use it. Of course, that comes with this speculative token issuing craze, and of course that's I guess part of the journey. Ethereum had a certain phase as well. Maybe still has a phase like that where everybody just issuing things and playing with it, and you finally see that happening on the XRPL, and that automatically comes with people knowing about the fact that it's a ledger that supports multiple assets, that has a decentralized exchange, because people are now actively trading. And I do believe that um, my business, my company, our product is for a large part responsible for um, what happened. The reason of course there are many people working on this, and but I do think that we built this platform, this app in the hands of the end users, this ready to use platform for developers to plug into, build cool stuff, put it in the hands of the users, build samples, examples, share code, and kickstart this ecosystem a bit. And yeah, a lot has happened in a year. Really
yeah.
proud of that actually.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, the wallet is so core to sort of everything. What was the what was the space like at the time when you were looking into or thinking about potentially building a wallet, right? Because I know in the beginning Ripple had their own internal
Yeah,
wallet that they had developed, like the Ripple
yeah,
client or something, but I suppose they shut that down and that sort of like left a bit of a vacuum in the
yeah,
ecosystem.
yeah. So they weren't allowed to do that anymore. Offer both the I I think you can say that back in the days when all of this happened, they were running most of the network. They were contributing to the source code. They
Mhm.
built a wallet that that runs in your browser, etc. So they were basically doing all of these things, and I understand how that can be tricky. So at some point they had to at least quit offering this wallet. It's interesting that last year we released a couple of features that were already available in 2015 in their wallet, and all those features were just gone for years. Um, we're getting back to 2015 basically, but in a fancier UI, I guess. But so there wasn't really a wallet. There was Toast Wallet. A lot of users used it because it was basically the only decent non-custodial wallet, except for, of course, the hardware wallets offering their own user interface like the Ledger Nano, etc. They had the desktop client, and of course it supported the XRPL, just payments, while the XRPL supports more payment methods. And interesting thing, by the way, is that Richard Holland, the guy that built Toast Wallet back in the days, a lot of users used, he is now working at XRPL Labs. We're good friends. At some
Oh,
point he decided to stop, and he even moved with his family to the Netherlands and is part of the team. He's doing amazing things and working on smart contracts for the XRP ledger actually, which is also really interesting. One of the things we're working on. But I think when we started working on XUMM, on the wallet and the platform behind it, because they go hand in hand, um, yeah, there wasn't that much around. There were clients, of course. There are mostly multi-coin wallets doing just payments, and yeah, so I was playing with it, with building a wallet and checking out what that should look like, and working with Tristan, the designer at XRPL Labs, on what the user interface could be. And then there was Ali, who I met online, also part of the XRPL community, and he was also building this wallet, and it looked amazing and did a lot of things. I think he still has the source code somewhere, and we decided that we should just team up instead of like all building our own separate things and maybe collaborating on trying to puzzle that together. Let's just join forces and build something better than we would individually build, and that became some.
that's great. And now a few years later, you're such a pivotal driving force, I feel like, within the community. Um, Stepping back a little bit and speaking of the community, right? Obviously, one of the pivotal things that happened was the SEC lawsuit. And, obviously from your specific perspective in terms of having a wallet and providing an application and allowing users to continue using it, it doesn't specifically affect you, but, how have you seen things within the community? And obviously the community is thriving to a certain extent. So what would it be like from your perspective?
Yeah, so the when I read about it, I was shocked, and I think everybody was shocked. And we were all trying to figure out how it, if it would affect us, how it would affect us. And after the shock, the first day, we all realized that it wouldn't really affect us because, uh, it's, I mean, they announced that they would look into it, and I mean, there wasn't a ruling that said you couldn't use XRP. It's also just in the US, which is of course a huge country, and a lot of our users are from the US, but we also have a lot of users in other countries and jurisdictions. So we quickly realized that we would just have to let this play out. And also, I am confident that, I mean, I have no opinion on the lawsuit and all the details about it, but um,
Sure.
it's it's kind of hard to imagine a world where a digital asset that's available on a decentralized network, which it definitely is these days, could be a security. And then if it would be just in the US, I mean, it doesn't affect us at this moment. I think most of the users in the US stay the user and are playing with their XRP on the decentralized exchange. Well, we're a non-custodial wallet, so no license is needed. I no, I don't really worry. If anything happens, we'll have to deal with it, and we'll do so accordingly. But
Right.
but
And
yes,
and and you and
it
your
was a
team,
shock when we heard about it.
certainly shocking. I'm sure for the entire industry, but it seems like, you guys are doing fine. The community is still growing. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening out there. But, I guess speaking on sort of the regulatory thing, because especially with the last couple of years, Um, we've had another sort of mini boom in prices that's brought a lot of extra attention, but we've also seen NFTs and DeFi. There's institutional interest. The space is certainly growing up. Um, and so obviously, we're going to have the attention from the SEC and regulators. Uh, you were you were one of the guys who actually reached out to us about integrating global ID. What was your thinking at the time, in terms of linking up a non-custodial wallet with decentralized identity? And because, there have been decentralized identity projects around for a bit, but it seems like for the community, there is a certain ethos that, the whole idea of a non-custodial wallet is to separate it from identity, right? It's sort of like cash in your wallet or something. What was your thinking, and how did you come to sort of, I guess, uh, coming to a place that I think a lot of users within the community might be a little fearful
Yeah.
of?
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. We so there's this um I would say the group of OGs, crypto OGs, and they're in this space for the anonymous transactions, for a revolution in payments, non-custodial, be your own bank. We're not those people. I think those things are important and interesting, but I also know that if you wanna use blockchain in, let's say, retail, etc., like actually use it, the technology for payments, then that doesn't work. You're not going to win the race because you'll have to comply with whatever the regulators come up with, and there are rules for good reasons. Um, I do like the fact that you and you only using your keys have access to your own funds and get access to those funds whenever you want, but there is going to be an on-ramp and off-ramp moment, and uh, uh, there is travel rule compliance, KYC, and AML that applies there. So we're not fighting all those things. We're trying to make it as easy and secure as possible for the end users and opt in, right? We're not saying you all have to link your global ID profile, go through KYC, or do things like that. That's optional, but I can definitely see how if you're really going to use blockchain technology for payments, uh, how it's impossible not to go through KYC and not to prove that you are who you say you are. We'll have to make it as easy as possible for end users, which means one time KYC and then bring that to the entire ecosystem. We'll have to make it really secure or work with people or companies who have products that are secure, and then try to position, in our case, the XRPL as a payment rails, just like any other existing payment rails, but more efficient, faster, cheaper. Micropayments are possible because the transaction costs are really low. So there are existing markets that can be disrupted, and there are new use cases that are finally viable, and that will come with a audience that's willing to, well, I don't like to say give up some of their anonymity. Uh, I like to think that the entire blockchain space is, if you're going to use it, about trust, and what better way to gain that trust and to show that you're trustworthy than by linking a profile that says this is me and it has been verified and this is one profile I can use anywhere, and well, layer that on top of this layer one blockchain basically.
Yeah, I think the key word that you said there again was also opt-in, right? Because, if you want to go non-custodial and you want to just play around or do your own thing, that's still an option. But if you do want to open this door potentially to this other world, where, some of there's going to be potentially some identity needs, having that option is fantastic, and I think to your point is a little bit of forward thinking in terms of, regulations coming online, for instance the travel rule. Um what what was the initial reaction from the community when you first reached sorry, release this feature, this integration between XUMM and Global ID. How did they react, and what was the sort of uptake over time?
So, of course, the obvious initial reaction was the question like, why are you doing, or not even a question, comment, like, why are you doing this?
Right.
And I mean, we could quickly answer all those concerns with the fact that it is
It's because
opt-in. Uh,
it's because you're the Illuminati, right?
Yeah,
That's why.
no, it's because it's opt-in. And another question that we got a lot was if we would store copies of all the data, and we don't. We just want a link, and we don't want to. We collect zero data about our users. We don't even want to know, because whatever we store, we have a responsibility to keep that secure, which we will do. But if you don't have it, you can't leak it. Um, and then there are always the early adopters. They like whatever is being built and all the innovation in this space. And a lot of those users already knew Global ID and already used our product, so uh, that was a no-brainer for them. They just enabled it, and then slowly people started like to use it bit by bit, and we got the questions about like, okay, I linked my profile, can I unlink it? I had my profile icon, can I remove that? Because what we do is we if you link your global ID profile with your XRPL account in some, again, opt-in, you can show your name and your profile icon in our application, which makes it really personal, right? If I would send you some XRP, you see my name, you see my face, and without us having to build yet another photo upload form and yet another name change form and stuff like that, because I mean, it's already in your system. And then we bring that data, that link, to the entire ecosystem. So if you're using a transaction explorer, there's your face and your name again. And there's this check mark if there's government ID verification, which we have never seen, but we trust you. User trusts you. So, I mean, we can help help bring that check mark to the entire ecosystem and build that trust. And I think after a while we have had all questions and wrote all FAQs. So I think that's all fine, fine right now. Whatever question people come up with, we can answer it with a link to an FAQ.
So I heard you mention a couple of things. For instance, XRPL Labs, or the XUMM Wallet team not holding any information, for instance. And obviously there was already some overlap between Global ID and XUMM and like the XRP community in general. But what was your sort of thinking in choosing to go with Global ID as your identity solution? Since there are some options out there, right?
Yeah, well, of course I like the fact that there was already a link between Global ID and the XRP community. I like the Global ID vision. It overlaps with our vision, and from a technological standpoint, everything is really, really good in order. Like the documentation, I got a couple of comments that some of the things were outdated, but I didn't notice that. It was really easy to integrate, and the way your platform and application is built allows for a really user-friendly integration between our both apps and products. And the one thing that's, well, maybe combined with security, a shared number one position. But the one thing we really, really care about is the user experience. It should be very easy. If a user makes a mistake in these things, like linking a profile, setting something up, that's our fault. That's not the user's fault. The user shouldn't be able to make a mistake. And I think that the flow we have doesn't allow for any mistakes to happen. So also really important. And you guys are very responsive as well to the community, which is also something we really appreciate and feel like sh we should get that right. Most crypto projects offer zero support or really bad support, and we have in-app support for all 300,000 monthly unique active users. Just tap a button, ask your question, and we'll get back to you within a couple of hours. And I think all those things you guys are taking care of and we are taking care of are mandatory if we want a shot at retail adoption.
Very cool. And yeah, obviously from our side, we're also very appreciative of the partnership. I think one of the really cool things is that, I mean, it's a 2009, so it's been almost, what is that, 15 years? Closing in on 15 years, let's say, since, this crypto thing started, but it's still a very, very nascent space. And there is a lot of foundational sort of building blocks that are required to be developed. The ecosystem has to be built out. One of the really cool things about this XUMM and global ID integration was that, on the one hand, we had decentralized self sovereign identity here. Over here, we had a non custodial wallet. And now we had this integration that could build a sense of trust for this non custodial wallet. I think it was soon after, maybe a few months after, I think people started working on NFTs on the XRP
Yep.
ledger. And we had people organically figure out that, for their NFT airdrops or their NFT launches, they could now build in extra layers of trust using this integration to help with issues such as like farming or bots. You mentioned that a lot of a lot of stuff going on right now is about speculation, right? And that's just, I think, the nature of where the cycle is. Just early on, that's where a lot of the noise is.
Agree.
But if you are actually trying to build, a legitimate project and maybe be part of that next wave where you're providing real utility, it's really difficult because of all the noise and all the farming and all
Yeah.
the speculation. And people figured out that they could now sort of build those layers of trust, which I thought was very cool. What have you been seeing on your side, in terms of airdrops, in terms of I'm sure you've seen like an explosion of usage because we've seen
Yep.
it. And just in terms of, the verification of identity and how that's played a
Yeah.
role.
Yeah. So a couple of interesting stories there, and indeed, it's amazing how that somehow organically uh, um, progressed and what projects are doing because I mentioned basically passporting a check mark, right? So users
Hmm.
link their global ID profile with their XRPL account, with their non-custodial blockchain address through XUMM because we can provide the cryptographic proof that someone has the key to an account. Your platform and our platform shake hands, and there's a link, which doesn't mean that everything is suddenly exposed. It just means there's a link, and then it's up to the user to decide what to share, what not to share. Um, Now you have a whole bunch of attestation providers allowing government ID verifications, and all we get from your platform is basically a check mark. Did this user go successfully through a government ID verification process? And that's actually all we want to know. We don't have to know your name or birthday. We just want to know, did you go through this process and was it successful? So once we know that, we can share that because we have the link, we don't have the underlying data. We can share that with the entire ecosystem. And then what happened within a couple of weeks is that we collaborated with the most used transaction explorers in this space. That's BitHump, XRP Scan, XRplorer, probably forgetting a couple of others. And they implemented this lookup to our platform. So you're looking at this blockchain address, or whatever, and then the blockchain explorer calls our API. We call your API. This all happens in milliseconds. And then they know if they can show a green check mark, like this user went successfully through government ID verification. And I guess that's what the developers noticed. Like, hey, there's a difference between this blockchain address and that blockchain address. This one can be trusted because it has this green check mark, and that one doesn't. So if you want to know that you're dealing with a real person that's not the same person with 50 blockchain accounts trying to game the system and get an airdrop, let's just check for this check mark. And again, uh, without sharing any personal details. That's public information on our API, so just integrate with it. And I think that's where the idea came from, if you look at the airdrop projects. And what we noticed then, we got a couple of support tickets, or maybe 30, 40, 50 in a weekend, where because we have this platform that talks to your platform. We don't want to basically hammer your platform. So what we do is every minute we run this job, and then we refresh the information for 5 or 10, I don't remember the exact number, profiles. And we thought, well, there might be uh, a larger number of profiles to fetch, to verify, to update, but there will be a moment in time where it's quiet, and we'll go through that queue, and next day we'll start fresh again. And at some point, a whole bunch of support tickets that they were waiting for 3, 4 days now, and they still didn't see the green check mark on their Explorer page for their account, and they clearly went through the link process, and they clearly added a government ID at the station. And then I checked the queue, and in a matter of weeks, it built up to 30K remaining items, and the queue was growing faster than the 5 or 10 items we checked per minute would solve. So we had to make some changes there. Right now we can handle, I guess, any number that people throw at us. But yeah, there was a huge uptick there, and I think that's exactly what we're both after.
I mean, that's, I guess, the best
Yeah,
problem to have, right? And, I for us, it was I think what was so cool about it was the fact that it happened
yeah,
organically. It's like the community saw these tools out there, and, they're little light integrations and whatnot, and they figured out, wow, we can actually leverage these things to build a better community, to have a better product. And a lot of these are the same people that were potentially very anti-identity in the beginning. So it is very cool to see the space mature, to see users and developers find these sort of novel situations to really common problems. What where is your head in terms of identity for XUMM today and maybe tomorrow? Like where do you sort of see this going, right? The travel rule recommendations just got updated a few months ago, and there's like specific recommendations now about non-custodial wallets. So how are you thinking about all of these developments?
yeah. I actually think that identity is key, and then the blockchain account is second. Uh, uh, we're already getting there, but especially in the future, you are a real person, or maybe a business, but I mean, 99% of our user base are just people using this. Um, you are a person, and you want to interact with something Web3, right? So you're signing into a platform, one identity. You have a couple of blockchain accounts and use different wallets, custodial, non-custodial mix, one identity. You use exchanges, one identity. And I think it's really important that you take this one identity to all these platforms instead of the existing, I would say, shit show where you have to upload your ID everywhere, answer the same questions everywhere. And the problem is that all these platforms, they have this narrow view into your identity, right? Only what they ask will be provided to them. While if you combine this on a trustworthy platform, you have a much broader view and can do a much better uh, um, yeah, make a much better estimate of if this is someone you want to deal
Sure.
with. And the future will be a mix of payment rails and custody, non-custodial, different assets, not even tokens. We're talking anything of value. Um, I mean, you can transact in a specific token, but maybe you want to send off something you own. So not an NFT as in a picture of a cat, but maybe you own a share in land, also value, also on the blockchain, and you want to use that to pay for something else, and maybe someone on the other end of the line wants to receive dollars or euros. That should all be very easy, seamless, fast, but it's never going to happen if there's no identity. Because if this NFT again, not a picture of a cat, but an actual share in a piece of land, identity to comply with rules and regulations. And if you want to pay someone, it uses another platform, maybe not now, maybe not in all jurisdictions, but 5 years from now, that will come with travel rule compliance. As a provider, we will have to share some data with the receiving side. Um, and it wouldn't surprise me if that applies to non-custodial as well, if it's a third-party deposit or withdrawal. So yeah, we want to be ahead of the game here, and we want to basically show. We applied for our own license in the Netherlands or registration. We obtained that. It was a lot of work because we're also gonna add on and off ramp because we want to make everything really easy. And they it was actually a USP to the regulator that we were doing all these things, working with you, adding KYC, looking at user trust, while we don't even have to. It's not mandatory in the Netherlands, but we're going in that direction. So better be ahead of the game and basically show the industry what the future is going to look like instead of trying to hold it off.
For sure. In a lot of ways, it's another form of innovation, right? And trust and identity have really been core to civilization since the beginning. I think people have maybe had bad experiences over the last 10 to 20 years in terms of how identity has worked with a lot of these sort of centralized platforms, maybe. Um, but yeah, there is this cool opportunity now of having a new framework, having more ownership, not just of your wallet, but also your identity, having that
Yeah.
interoperability and portability. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
Definitely. I mean, even the custodial platforms are going to benefit if this happens. So let's say you have this custodian. Right now, you create an account, you register a username, come up with a password. People are going to forget their password or choose shitty passwords. Then set up two-factor, etc., a whole process. Then you upload your profile icon because you want the upper right corner to look nice, right?
Yeah.
Now, for example, take this blockchain account where you own the key to, and this blockchain account is already linked, and so there's cryptographic proof that it belongs to someone with a certain
Right.
global ID profile. You already have a profile picture. You already have a name. There is already a government ID attestation. Now let's say you use that through our application, right? Through XUMM, you use your blockchain account to sign into this platform, custodian, exchange, whatever. Maybe at some point they need more information, they can ask for it, but you don't have to sign up anymore. You log in, and this platform gets a whole bunch of things for free, basically, setting all of this up. So if they want to verify if a deposit is a third-party deposit or a deposit by the end user, they don't have to look for anything else. They already got cryptographic proof that a wallet signed in that belongs to the user that signed in the first place. And they know they're dealing with a real person. They might want to know or need to know who that real person is by having ID info in their own systems. But you can make the onboarding so much easier.
I mean, it removes friction from onboarding, but also just having that seamless access to everyone's assets, right? If they want to connect it to those custodial platforms. I mean, we've seen, Coinbase and Fidelity in a group of, I think, 18 or so custodial centralized providers around this. They're calling it the trust framework for dealing with the travel rule. But again, it only deals with sort of custodial options. Um, and so, there's still this big question mark around non-custodial
Yeah,
wallets as well. Um, Having access to that ecosystem for custodial services,
yeah.
that would be a big plus, right? And because that's where a lot of the crypto world lives.
And it
So
would not surprise me that at some point in the future, a couple of years from now, if you use a non-custodial wallet that doesn't offer this framework, this platform in the background that plays nice with the existing ecosystem, that
right.
you basically cannot use it. It's a closed ecosystem. You cannot get your fiat into you cannot turn your fiat into crypto and move it to this non-custodial account or vice versa. if you don't use a wallet that plays nice with the system, that's by then mandatory.
Well, it's recorded and we have it on record that you were way ahead of everyone else on identity. Something we really respect. What are you excited about for XUMM this year? Where are we in terms of development or product or what's cool?
It's quite it's a really exciting year. It's so exciting that I don't sleep that much anymore because there's so much to
Mm,
do. But I think we have had a awesome period of just building and growing, and I think we're seeing a network effect now, and we have this basis where we can build other stuff on top of, and we're not only doing that, the most amazing thing is that there's an ecosystem building on top of that. We see websites and apps using a integration with some we have never heard about. They
mm,
they just build it, and then suddenly you see it pop up somewhere. And you think, hey, they
yeah.
did a nice job integrating that. We see people building what we call X apps, so applications integrated in our application, um, and reaching out for a code audit or stuff like that. So that's really great to see that that network effect is finally picking up. And what we will be doing in the meantime is we're gonna launch XUMM Pro, which is a subscription where
Mm,
we offer more features to users, things like constant network monitoring and push notifications for anything that happens to your account, on and off ramp. We'll start in the Netherlands. As I mentioned, we obtained a registration license to on and off ramp from and to euros. Then we're going to try to expand that throughout Europe this and next year. And with all of these puzzle pieces coming together, we are already actively reaching out to retail environments to see if it's an option to offer the XRP ledger through some as an alternative payment rails. And to do that,
wow.
there needs to be an integration. Well, we're getting there with on and off ramp. And to do that, sometimes we gotta take care of identity. We do that by integrating with you guys. And to do that, for retailers to look at this and say, okay, let's be part of the future. You need a audience. Well, we have an audience now. So everything is coming together, and I think you're going to see the first retail integrations, like big international e-commerce projects, point of sales on the XRPL through some this year.
That is super cool. I mean, when you start talking about things like on and off ramps and identity and potentially like a retail network, it doesn't really sound like a non-custodial wallet anymore, right? It almost just sounds like that's just financial
Yeah,
services,
so
right?
that's actually really interesting. That's where the most difficult parts of the conversations with these potential partners are about. Because everybody's used to a custodian. So let's say you are a payment service provider, a PSP, and you accept payments and then forward it in batches to the beneficiary, to the retailer, someone operating a web shop or something. Everybody thinks in custody. So we're taking this balance in this platform and we're moving it from the user to the retailer. And here we are saying, no, no, it's non-custodial, but the funds flow through you. No, 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 we're just the messenger, right? We just basically allow the retailer and the end user to meet each other, shake hands, and transfer funds over the XRPL. Never hits our systems, and that requires conversations with lawyers and everybody to figure out how terms and conditions and security requirements and everything apply here. So that's actually the hard part. It's not really
Right.
hard to convince those platforms to do this, um, but it's hard to find a way to integrate it in their existing legal frameworks and conditions and everything.
That is sort of like where we are now, right? Where it's not necessarily about the technology anymore, right? It is about how do we figure out frameworks for all of these um new platforms in a way that can sort of bridge to our traditional ways of potentially thinking about
Yeah.
things. But I think one of the cool things about DeFi and NFTs is that it's really pushed the non-custodial wallet forward, right? Because there was a time in crypto where you could have just used Coinbase for everything, but now if you really do want to access DeFi and you want to have your NFT, the non-custodial wallet is becoming more and more prominent.
Yeah.
And I think solving that problem, on the technology side, but also like you said on the legal and regulatory side, that's sort of like the beginning of this next chapter, right?
Yep.
So it's exciting
Definitely.
times. Yeah. Vita, I mean, it's been a pleasure, really, learning more about you, hearing your thoughts and everything. Do you have anything else you want to add? Anything on your mind?
Um, no, not really. I think we covered a lot of things in this 45 minutes.
We certainly did. I mean, it was honestly a pleasure. We'll have to do it again, maybe when enough times pass, so we'll have some good updates for each other. But yeah, it was great having you.
Thank you for having me, and let's do this again somewhere at the end of this year to see how much we managed to do. Looking back at all of the things I just said that would happen this year.
You got
Okay,
it. All
thank
right.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.